Hello, my name is James Chastain, and my religious background growing up was Catholic. And I took this class because I was also taking culture anthropology, and I felt that the two would complement each other really well. And I'm glad I did because religion just has so much to do with our daily lives and as a culture in general. And overall, it's the reason why my family is even here. So, half my family immigrated from France, and they came to Virginia because they wanted to escape the Catholics and religious persecution. And the other half of my family came from the north of Ireland because they wanted to escape the persecution of the Protestants from England. And so we ended up in America both for the same reasons on different sides. And that's kind of a microcosm of what I learned from this class overall in general, is just that if we were all more understanding of each other's faiths instead of trying to prove to somebody else that I'm right and you're wrong based off of what I believe and what you don't believe, then I think we'd all be better for it. For my midterm paper, I wrote of course, my journey to a religion that's not in my faith, and that was Judaism. I did this because Judaism is the godfather, so to speak, of Catholicism, Protestants, as well as Islam. And I'd never been to a synagogue, and I don't know anything about their faith other than what my next door neighbors told me. So I was able to attend online from Temple Beth El. It's a local synagogue based here in Allentown. And if there's anything that was positive that came out of the coronavirus pandemic, was so many faiths are making their services available online to the masses. It just makes it so much more convenient for people to be able to attend, or for people that are perhaps more shy about stepping out of the comfort zone or whatever it may be, to be able to explore faith and see what it's going to be like before they get there. So perhaps they won't be as nervous, and they'll just be able to enjoy the service itself. And so one big thing that I noticed, and this is what my final would be about, is a compare and contrast between Catholicism and Judaism. I didn't really expect anything going into it, other than I knew it would be different. And one thing that I was surprised about was that it is all in Hebrew in Allentown, and everywhere else is always in Hebrew. The reason why is because when Vatican II took over for the Catholic Church, for example, with Pope John Paul, Mass was no longer only in Latin, which is how it was conducted all the way up until the late 60s with Vatican II. If you went to Mass, it was never in your native language. It was always in Latin. And so Pope John Paul felt that this kind of took people away from the spirit and away from the intention of Mass. You're supposed to understand the words that are being said by the priest, and everything else as part of the experience of it and the worship. And so for the first time ever with Vatican II, Mass would now be in your mother tongue. So Spanish, French, whatever language it is that is the language of the place that you reside, that is now the language that Mass would be conducted in. And my grandparents were really happy for that, because they always felt disconnected when they went to Mass with it being in Latin. It's a dead language. Very rarely do you have it as an option in high school, and let's be honest, with most languages we take in high school, you don't really remember much beyond where's the bathroom, or how to ask directions, or something basic like that. So I was impressed that the gentleman that was conducting this, you could tell that Hebrew obviously wasn't his native language. The live stream actually started before the service did, so I kind of felt like I showed up early. And, he was being corrected on his pronunciation and things like that. However, when the service did start, you could see him just kind of take a breath. I'm not sure how many times he'd done it before, but he was able to get everything out in this beautiful way. And I was surprised at how much it reminded me of Mass. So Kabbat is 6 o'clock at night on Friday. Traditionally, it used to be when the sun went down. But what it is, it's like a poetic singing at times, almost like a homily that we'd have in Mass, of the Psalms and the days of the week. And the tones and the rhythm in which he was able to read Hebrew and then speak it / sing it at times was just amazing. And again, it just reminded me of the homily. There was a time when he said something and he held his arms out in like a welcoming gesture, similar to a priest in Mass does when he says, "And peace be with you," and then we reply back, "And also with you." It reminded me very much of that. And even though I couldn't understand what was going on, it just felt peaceful and comforting in a way that I honestly didn't expect. And so I asked my neighbor, what she thought of it, and was it difficult with Hebrew and all that, and she felt like it detracted from the service itself. And she was like, "No, absolutely not, because it's the language of the Israelites, and God's chosen people, and that's the original language." And that a lot of Jews in New York, where she grew up at, would spend a substantial amount of money for their kids to learn Hebrew, especially boys, in preparation of their bat mitzvah, their coming of age, so they could read from the Torah as well in Hebrew. And all this was expected to be completed before school, early in the morning, or after school, on top of all their academic studies and extracurricular activities and chores and things like that, was to excel at Hebrew. Because oftentimes, at least for her and her friends, it wasn't spoken in the home as much unless it was in a religious context. So that was just extra effort they had to put forth. So with that, it just gave me a whole new respect for Judaism as a whole and people who choose to follow that religion. For my final, I will be doing a compare and contrast of Catholicism and Judaism and what I was able to learn from that faith. And I'm just really thankful for the things that I learned in this class in general, from all the different religions itself, and how we all have so many similarities. Thank you.